Olivia stood in her kitchen, staring blankly at the cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The echoes of Aidan's words still reverberated in her mind, each one hitting like a fresh blow. "You're boring, Liv. I need more. I found someone who excites me, who makes me feel alive." It's over. After nearly a decade of marriage, he was leaving her. The man who had once promised to love her forever was walking out the door because, as he put it, she no longer fit into his life. Aidan, a rising star in his career as a corporate lawyer, had met someone younger, more spontaneous. Scarlett. The name stung like a fresh wound. The shock had quickly given way to anger, and then a profound sadness that settled over her like a heavy fog. Olivia could barely breathe in the emptiness of their once shared apartment. She had given so much of herself to their life together, too much, she realized now. In losing him, she had lost parts of herself too. The realization was unbearable. For weeks after he left, Olivia went through the motions. Days passed in a blur of legal paperwork, lonely nights, and countless tears. Her friends tried to rally around her, but she couldn't bring herself to engage. What was the point? She felt utterly drained and empty, her life devoid of color or meaning. One dreary afternoon, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was her best friend, Zoe, the only person who hadn't given up on trying to pull her from the abyss. "Liv," Zoe's voice crackled through the line, "you need to get out of that apartment." "I've been thinking, let's go to Paris." "Paris," Olivia repeated, her voice hoarse. "Zoe, I can barely get out of bed." "How am I supposed to get on a plane to France?" "Exactly," Zoe countered. "You've been in bed for weeks. Come on, Liv. You need a change of scenery, a fresh start. Paris is magical. Trust me, it'll do you good," Olivia sighed, her mind automatically rejecting the idea. She was in no state to fly halfway across the world. And yet, a tiny spark flared in her chest, an old dream she'd once had of walking along the Seine, exploring the streets of Montmartre, and sitting at a cafe watching the world go by. "Paris," Olivia murmured again, her thoughts drifting back to happier times. She hadn't taken a vacation in years, and the thought of doing something just for herself felt foreign, yet oddly appealing. "I don't know, Zoe," she trailed off. "Think about it," Zoe urged. "I've already booked my ticket. There's a seat next to me if you want it. No pressure. But I'll be at JFK in 2 days, whether you're coming or not." The line went dead, leaving Olivia standing there, contemplating the possibility. Maybe Zoe was right. Maybe Paris was exactly what she needed, a chance to escape, to step away from the pieces of her shattered life and rediscover who she was. Underscore 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 2 days later, Olivia found herself at JFK, suitcase in hand, staring at the departure board. She was still numb, still broken in many ways, but here she was, on her way to Paris. Zoe met her at the gate with a wide smile, wrapping her in a tight hug that momentarily lifted the weight from her shoulders. The flight itself was uneventful, but the anticipation that built as they neared Paris began to awaken something in Olivia, something she hadn't felt in years, a flicker of excitement. As the plane descended toward the glittering lights of the city, Olivia caught a glimpse of the Eiffel Tower in the distance, standing tall and proud against the night sky. For the first time since her world had crumbled, she allowed herself a small, tentative smile. The next morning, Olivia and Zoe set out to explore the city. Paris, with its winding cobblestone streets and elegant architecture, was just as magical as Zoe had promised. They wandered through art galleries, sipped coffee at quaint cafes, and strolled along the Seine, soaking in the vibrant energy of the city. It was impossible not to be enchanted by the sights and sounds of Paris, and slowly, Olivia felt some of the heaviness begin to lift. One evening, as they sat at a café in the heart of Montmartre, Olivia spotted a group of artists setting up their easels nearby. Something about their carefree laughter, their passion for life, stirred something deep within her. Watching them, she realized how much of herself she had sacrificed to fit into the life Aiden had wanted. She had lost her sense of spontaneity, her love for adventure, her dreams. Sitting there, surrounded by the beauty of Paris, she realized it was time to start reclaiming those lost parts of herself. "You know what, Zoe?" Olivia said, turning to her friend with a sudden burst of clarity. "I think I'm going to quit my job." As Zoe's eyes widened in surprise. "Quit your job? Are you serious?" "Yes," Olivia said, her voice growing more confident with each word. "I've been stuck in a career that doesn't fulfill me for years. I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to travel, to see the world, to experience life again. I've got enough savings to last me a while, and I don't need a fancy title or a big paycheck to be happy." Zoe grinned, raising her glass of wine. "Here's to new beginnings." Olivia clinked her glass against Zoe's, feeling the spark of possibility ignite within her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like her life was her own again. As they toasted to the unknown future, neither of them could have predicted the whirlwind of events that awaited Olivia. Paris had opened a door, but what lay beyond was a journey that would take her to unexpected places, both around the world and within herself. Little did she know, her story was just beginning. 2 weeks after returning from Paris, Olivia sat at her desk, staring at the resignation letter she'd just typed. The office was quiet, but the hum of fluorescent lights above seemed deafening. She glanced around at the gray cubicles and blank computer screens, feeling a pang of familiarity that was rapidly being replaced by something else: freedom. Paris had awakened something in her, a sense of life she hadn't felt in years. Now, staring at the letter on the screen, she knew this was the right decision. She couldn't go back to the monotony of her old life, to the endless reports, and the stifling predictability of her corporate job. She had more to offer the world, and more importantly, she had more to experience. With a deep breath, Olivia pressed send. The moment the email left her outbox, a wave of relief washed over her. She had done it, officially quit. Her heart raced with excitement and a hint of nervousness. No job, no plan, just a small fortune in savings and the determination to reclaim her life. That night, she packed a small suitcase, throwing in just the essentials: a few pairs of clothes, a journal, her passport, and a camera to capture the memories she was determined to make. She didn't need much, not anymore. The real adventure was waiting beyond the borders of her carefully constructed world, and she was ready to explore it. The next morning, she boarded her first flight, Barcelona. As the plane took off, she felt a rush of exhilaration. The sky opened up before her, vast and limitless, just like her future. She had no itinerary, no set plans, only the desire to lose herself in the world and, in doing so, find herself again. Barcelona was the first stop on what would become a whirlwind tour of Europe. She wandered through the streets of the Gothic Quarter, marveled at Gaudi's architecture, and danced with strangers in the warm Mediterranean nights. Each day brought something new: new faces, new experiences, and a new sense of wonder. From there, she traveled to Italy, sipping espresso in tiny cafes in Florence, and later, she found herself drifting along the canals of Venice. In Greece, she stood on the cliffs of Santorini, watching the sun set over the Aegean Sea, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She realized just how much she had been missing. In every country, in every city, Olivia met fascinating people, travelers like herself, locals with rich stories, and dreamers who encouraged her to keep pushing the boundaries of her comfort zone. It was in Iceland, standing before a waterfall that roared so loudly she could barely hear her own thoughts, that she felt the pull to do something more daring. The next day, Olivia signed up for her first adventure, paragliding over the glaciers. As she soared above the icy landscape, the wind in her hair and adrenaline coursing through her veins, she felt alive in a way she never had before. The weight of her past seemed to fall away, leaving only the present moment. One experience led to another. In New Zealand, she went bungee jumping off a bridge into a gorge, her heart leaping into her throat as she plunged toward the earth before being yanked back up by the cord. In Costa Rica, she tried whitewater kayaking, paddling furiously down a rushing river as her guide cheered her on from the shore. Skydiving came next. Olivia flew to Switzerland, where she found herself in a small prop plane, thousands of feet above the ground. Her stomach churned with nerves, but as she looked out at the snow-capped Alps, she knew there was no turning back. When the jump instructor gave the signal, she took a deep breath and leaped from the plane. For a moment, there was nothing but the sensation of falling, weightless and free. When the parachute finally deployed and she floated peacefully above the world, she thought to herself, "I am not boring anymore." In the months that followed, Olivia's adventures grew bolder. She hiked mountains in Peru, dived with sharks in Australia, and even tried her hand at wingsuit flying. Each time she pushed herself a little further, tested her limits, and discovered a strength she never knew she had. One evening, while sitting on the terrace of a small cafe in Bali, scrolling through her phone, a message pinged on Instagram. Olivia glanced at it absent-mindedly at first, but when she saw the sender, her heart skipped a beat. It was Aiden. "Hey, Liv. I've been following your travels. Wow, you've really changed. I'm impressed. Could we talk sometime?" For a moment, Olivia just stared at the message, a swirl of emotions rising within her. There was a time when a message like this would have sent her heart racing, when she might have jumped at the chance to hear from him, to try and understand why he had left. But now? Now she was different. She had grown in ways Aiden couldn't possibly comprehend. The life she was living, the person she had become, was not someone who needed his approval or his validation. She typed a quick response, her fingers steady and sure as they tapped out the words. "Hi Aiden. I'm glad you're impressed, but I'm living my life now. There's nothing left to talk about between us." With that, she hit send and immediately blocked him, closing the door on that chapter of her life for good. As she sat back in her chair, a sense of finality and peace washed over her. She wasn't the woman Aiden had left behind anymore. She wasn't boring or predictable. She was Olivia, a woman who had found the courage to leap into the unknown and create a life that was her own. That night, as she walked along the beach under the starlit sky, she realized something important. Aiden had called her boring because he couldn't see the fire that had always been inside her. But she had found that fire on her own, in the places she had traveled, in the people she had met, and in the challenges she had overcome. For the first time in her life, Olivia felt completely free. And she knew this was only the beginning. The sun hung low in the Arizona sky as Olivia stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon, mesmerized by the vast, jagged expanse that stretched before her. She had visited so many incredible places, but the raw, untamed beauty of this natural wonder took her breath away. The wind whistled softly in her ears, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world was standing still. "Beautiful, isn't it?" A deep, friendly voice interrupted her reverie. Olivia turned to see a man standing beside her. He was tall and fit, with sun-kissed skin and light brown hair tied back in a loose ponytail. He had an easy smile, the kind that made you feel comfortable right away. His worn hiking boots and the logo on his backpack hinted that he was a guide. "Yeah," Olivia replied, smiling back. "It's hard to believe this place is real. Every time I look at it, it feels like I'm staring at a painting," he chuckled. "I get that reaction a lot. I'm Noah, by the way," he extended his hand. "Olivia," she said, shaking his hand. His grip was warm and firm, and she felt an instant connection. "You're a guide here?" "Yup. Been guiding tours for a couple of years now." Best office view in the world, if you ask me, Noah said, gesturing to the canyon with a grin. They fell into an easy conversation as they walked along the trail. Olivia found herself laughing at his stories about tourists who underestimated the canyon's size or thought they could bring home a piece of the rock as a souvenir. There was something refreshing about his company. He had a way of making everything feel light and simple, which was a welcome change from the whirlwind her life had been lately. "So, what brings you here, Olivia? You don't seem like the typical tourist," Noah asked, his curiosity genuine. Olivia hesitated for a second before she answered. "I guess I'm just traveling. Trying to see as much of the world as I can. That sounds like more than just sightseeing." "Is this part of a bigger journey, something like that?" she admitted. "I've been traveling for months now, trying new things, pushing my limits. I needed to get out of my old life and figure out what makes me feel alive again." Noah nodded, listening intently. "I get that. Sometimes you have to step away from everything to find what really matters." They continued talking as they descended deeper into the canyon, the landscape shifting with each step. It felt like they had known each other for years, even though they'd just met. Olivia couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this comfortable with someone so quickly. As they reached a secluded spot with a stunning view of the canyon bathed in the golden glow of sunset, Noah leaned against a rock and looked at her thoughtfully. "You ever thought about volunteering?" he asked. "Volunteering?" Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Where?" "Well, I'm headed to Africa in a few weeks. A friend of mine runs a wildlife conservation project there. They're always looking for extra hands, people to help out with animal rehabilitation, community outreach, that sort of thing. I was planning to go myself, and it crossed my mind that you might be interested." Olivia blinked, surprised by the offer. "Africa? Wow, I mean, I've never even thought about something like that." Noah shrugged casually, but there was a spark in his eyes. "You seem like the type of person who's up for an adventure. And this," he gestured around them, "this is just the beginning. If you're looking for something meaningful, I promise you'll find it out there." The idea lit a fire in Olivia. She had come this far, doing things she never imagined she would. The thought of going to Africa, of helping protect wildlife and immersing herself in a new culture, felt like the next step in this journey she had begun. And the idea of going with Noah, who radiated such an easygoing, confident energy, made the offer even more tempting. "You know what?" Olivia said, feeling a familiar thrill building in her chest. "Why not? I'll go," and Noah grinned widely. "I had a feeling you'd say that." A few weeks later, they were on a plane headed for Tanzania. Olivia had spent the time between the Grand Canyon and their departure wrapping her mind around this next big leap. She and Noah kept in touch constantly, and each conversation made her feel more excited and more nervous about what was to come. They arrived in Tanzania to the sound of birds and the scent of warm earth. The conservation camp was nestled in the heart of the savannah, surrounded by the wild beauty of Africa. Olivia quickly fell into the rhythm of life at the camp, rising with the sun to care for the animals and spending her days learning from local conservationists about their efforts to protect endangered species. Noah was always nearby, guiding her through the work and introducing her to the community. He had a natural charm that made him easy to talk to, and everyone around the camp seemed to gravitate toward him. Olivia couldn't help but admire how passionate he was about the cause, how deeply he cared about the animals and the land. They became fast friends, sharing long conversations under the stars at night. Their bond grew deeper with each passing day, and Olivia found herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't anticipated. He made her laugh like no one else could, and when he spoke about his travels and dreams, she saw a reflection of her own hunger for adventure. And yet, there was a quiet fear inside her, a fear she couldn't quite shake. She was starting to realize that her feelings for Noah went beyond friendship, but the thought of letting herself care for someone again terrified her. After everything she had been through with Aiden, the idea of opening her heart to someone new felt like stepping into dangerous territory. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat around a campfire, the crackling flames casting shadows on their faces. Noah turned to her, his eyes soft and thoughtful. "You know, Olivia, I'm really glad you came. It's been amazing having you here." Olivia felt her heart race, but she forced herself to keep her tone light. "It's been incredible. I didn't think I'd ever end up in Africa, but here I am." Noah smiled, but there was something more in his expression, something deeper. For a moment, Olivia thought he might say something that would change everything between them. But then he looked away, poking at the fire instead. "Yeah," he said softly, "you're full of surprises." The words hung between them, and Olivia felt a knot tighten in her chest. She wanted to say more, to admit how much she cared about him, but the words stayed trapped in her throat. She wasn't ready, maybe she never would be. For now, she was content with the friendship they shared, even if her heart longed for more. As they sat in the quiet of the African night, surrounded by the sounds of the wild, Olivia knew that this chapter of her life was far from over. There were still so many adventures ahead, and whether or not her path with Noah would lead to something deeper, she was ready to face whatever came next. Weeks turned into months, and the African savanna had become Olivia and Noah's home. The days were filled with the rhythm of conservation work, rehabilitating injured animals, teaching local communities about wildlife protection, and watching the breathtaking sunsets that painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. The quiet nights around the campfire brought moments of deep connection, where Olivia and Noah shared their dreams, their fears, and, eventually, their hearts. It happened gradually. The shift from friendship to something more was like the slow rise of the sun, gentle and inevitable. Their laughter became more intimate, their glances lingered longer, and the spaces between their words were filled with unspoken affection. One evening, as they sat beneath the vast African sky, the stars twinkling like diamonds above, Noah took her hand in his. His touch was warm, and Olivia's heart skipped a beat as he gazed at her with that familiar, easy smile. Only now, there was something new behind his eyes. "Olivia," he began, his voice soft but certain, "I've been wanting to tell you something for a while now." Olivia's breath caught in her throat, her pulse quickening. She had known this moment was coming, and yet she still felt the nervous anticipation of it. "I'm in love with you," he said, the words hanging in the air like a promise. "I've been falling for you since the first day we met in the canyon, and every day since then, I've realized more and more that I don't want to be without you." Tears stung Olivia's eyes as she smiled at him, her heart swelling with joy. "I love you too, Noah." "I don't think I ever stopped falling." They kissed under the starlight, the vastness of the world around them shrinking to just the two of them in that perfect, timeless moment. It felt like everything had led to this, their adventures, their friendship, their shared experiences in the wild. Together, they had found a love that felt as boundless as the sky above them. A few months later, Olivia stood in their small cabin, her hands trembling as she held the pregnancy test. The two pink lines stared back at her, unmistakable. She was pregnant. Noah had been out working all morning, and as the weight of the news settled in, Olivia's heart danced between joy and uncertainty. She hadn't imagined becoming a mother so soon, but as her mind spun with the possibilities, she realized something else. This was the next great adventure. When Noah returned that afternoon, she told him the news. His eyes widened in shock at first, but then his face broke into a wide grin, and he lifted her off the ground in a joyful embrace. "We're going to have a baby," he laughed, his excitement contagious. "Can you believe it?" Olivia laughed with him, a tear rolling down her cheek. "No, I can't." "But it's happening." They spent the rest of the day talking about their future, imagining what life would be like with a child. The news brought a new sense of purpose, but it also meant that their nomadic lifestyle would have to change. Traveling the world with a newborn didn't seem feasible, and the conservation work they had loved so much required too much unpredictability for a growing family. "We're going to need to settle down, aren't we?" Noah said later that evening as they sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. "Yeah," Olivia agreed, feeling a mix of sadness and excitement. "We can't keep moving around forever." Maybe it's time to build something more stable, and so, they made the decision to move to a big city, a place where they could raise their child and start fresh. They chose Seattle, drawn to its mix of natural beauty and vibrant culture. It felt like the perfect balance of adventure and home, a place where they could plant roots without losing the sense of wonder that had brought them together. The transition to city life wasn't easy. After years of living on the road and working in remote areas, the hustle and bustle of Seattle was overwhelming at first. But Olivia and Noah were determined to build a life that reflected their love for adventure and their new role as parents. Noah had an idea for a business, an eco-friendly adventure tour company that would cater to travelers looking for meaningful, sustainable experiences. They had both seen the damage mass tourism could do to fragile ecosystems, and they wanted to offer something different, a way for people to explore the world while giving back to it. With their savings, they rented a small office space and began planning. Olivia worked on the marketing and logistics, while Noah focused on building partnerships with local guides and conservation groups. They poured their hearts into the business, excited about the possibilities and confident in their vision. But things didn't go as smoothly as they had hoped. The startup costs were higher than expected, and attracting customers proved to be a challenge in such a competitive market. Weeks turned into months, and though they worked tirelessly, the bookings were few and far between. One night, after another day of disappointing sales, Olivia sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spreadsheets. The numbers weren't adding up, and the weight of it all felt suffocating. The baby was due in a few months, and they were running out of time and money. Noah came up behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders and gently massaging the tension away. "We'll figure it out," he said softly, though she could hear the worry in his voice. "I don't know, Noah," Olivia said, her voice cracking. "What if this doesn't work? What if we've made a huge mistake?" He crouched down beside her, taking her hands in his. "We haven't made a mistake. We're doing this together, and no matter what happens, we're going to make it work." "We always do." Olivia looked into his eyes and saw the same determination that had brought them through so many adventures before. They had faced uncertainty and fear before. This was just another challenge to overcome. She nodded, finding strength in his unwavering support. "You're right," she said, squeezing his hand. "We didn't come this far to give up now." Over the next few months, they redoubled their efforts. They revamped their marketing strategy, started hosting local events to build a community around their brand, and reached out to travel bloggers and influencers to help spread the word. Slowly but surely, their business began to grow. It wasn't an overnight success, but the bookings started to trickle in. As the business took shape, so did their family. Olivia's belly grew rounder with each passing week, and with every kick and flutter, she felt the deepening bond with the life inside her. She and Noah spent their evenings planning for the baby, dreaming about the future they would build together. By the time their baby boy was born, their business had found its footing. It wasn't wildly successful yet, but it was growing steadily. More importantly, they had built something together, a life full of love, adventure, and possibility. One night, after putting the baby to sleep, Olivia and Noah sat on their porch, looking out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. "You know," Olivia said, resting her head on Noah's shoulder, "I never imagined my life turning out like this." Noah smiled, kissing the top of her head. "Neither did I. But I wouldn't trade it for anything." They sat in comfortable silence, reflecting on how far they had come. It hadn't been easy. There had been struggles, doubts, and moments of fear. But through it all, they had found something more valuable than success or stability. They had found each other. And together, they knew they could face whatever challenges life threw their way. Years passed, and the life Olivia and Noah built together continued to grow, shaped by their love, perseverance, and the small victories that kept their dreams alive. Their adventure tour business slowly gained traction, thanks in large part to the community they had nurtured around them. Friends, fellow travelers, and even some of the influencers they had met on their journeys came together to help spread the word. Social media campaigns, glowing testimonials, and heartfelt stories about sustainable travel began to pop up across various platforms, and soon, their business became known for offering unique, eco-friendly experiences. More and more customers came, eager to explore the world through the lens of conservation and authenticity. Olivia couldn't believe how far they'd come from those early days of doubt. As their business flourished, so did their family. Their son, Max, grew up healthy and happy, always curious about the world, much like his parents. He had Noah's gentle eyes and Olivia's love for adventure, a perfect blend of the two people who adored him more than anything. Olivia and Noah spent every moment they could exploring with him, camping trips in the mountains, sailing lessons by the coast, and weekend hikes through the forests around Seattle. Max was their joy, their reason for everything. But life, as it so often does, took an unexpected turn. Noah had been feeling tired for months, but he had shrugged it off as the stress of running a growing business and raising a young child. It wasn't until the fatigue became unbearable, accompanied by unexplained pain, that Olivia insisted he see a doctor. The diagnosis hit them both like a punch to the gut. Cancer. The word felt like it didn't belong in their life, like a foreign invader in the beautiful world they had worked so hard to create. But there it was, undeniable and terrifying. Olivia and Noah faced the news together, determined to fight it, just as they had fought through every other challenge life had thrown their way. For the next few years, their world became a delicate balance between hospital visits, treatments, and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy for Max. Noah's spirit remained strong, even as his body grew weaker. He still made time for the small moments, teaching Max how to tie his shoes, sitting with Olivia on the porch, watching the sunset over the city. They shared long talks late into the night, reminiscing about their adventures and imagining the ones they would have taken if time had been kinder. Olivia became Noah's rock, caring for him through the worst of it, while still running their business and raising their son. She never let herself think about what life would be like without him. She couldn't. Instead, she focused on each day as it came, finding strength in Noah's resilience and in Max's laughter. But eventually, the cancer won. Noah passed away on a quiet, rainy afternoon, with Olivia by his side, his hand in hers. She whispered words of love and gratitude, her heart breaking as she watched the light leave his eyes. He was gone, but the love they had shared, the life they had built, and the memories of their time together would live on. In the months after Noah's death, Olivia felt as if she were walking through a fog. The grief was overwhelming, suffocating at times, but she refused to let it drown her. She had Max to think of, and she knew she had to stay strong for him. He was only 6, but even at that age, he understood more than she expected. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Max turned to her and asked, "Mom, do you think Dad is watching us from the stars?" Olivia's heart clenched at the innocence of his question, but she smiled softly and nodded. "Yes, Max. I think he's watching us, and I think he's proud of us. He'll always be with us, in our hearts and in everything we do." Max leaned against her, his small hand resting in hers. I miss him too," she whispered, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. "But he's part of us, and he always will be. When I look at you, I see him. You have his eyes, his kindness, his spirit." That thought carried Olivia through the hardest days. Every time she looked at Max, she saw Noah's legacy. It gave her the strength to keep going, to keep building the life they had started together. She threw herself into their business, now a thriving company known for its integrity and unique approach to travel. Max, always curious, often tagged along on their local tours, eager to learn about the world just as his father had taught him. With the help of the network they had built, old friends, new clients, and business partners, their company expanded, offering more tours and even branching out into other countries. Olivia oversaw every detail, pouring her heart into it, knowing it was what Noah would have wanted. Every success felt like a tribute to him, a continuation of the dreams they had shared. But it was Max who truly kept her grounded. He was her anchor, her reason for waking up each day and pushing forward. In his laughter, in the way his eyes lit up when he learned something new, Olivia found pieces of Noah, little reminders that, though he was gone, his love was still very much alive. Years passed, and Max grew into a confident, compassionate young man. He had inherited his parents' love for adventure, and by the time he was a teenager, he was already talking about the places he wanted to explore. Olivia supported him in everything, just as Noah would have, guiding him through life's challenges while encouraging him to chase his dreams. One evening, after a long day at the office, Olivia sat on the same porch where she and Noah had once shared their quiet moments. Max was inside, finishing his homework, and the house was peaceful. She looked up at the stars, thinking of Noah, as she often did. "I did it, Noah," she whispered, her voice carried away by the wind. "We did it. Max is growing up to be an amazing person, and the business, it's everything we dreamed it could be. I miss you every day, but I'm not giving up. I'll never give up. Not on us, not on him." The pain of losing Noah would never fully disappear, but over time, it had become a part of her, a reminder of the love they had shared and the strength she had found in herself. Life had given her joy and taken it away, but it had also given her something far more precious, a son who carried his father's light, a business that stood as a testament to their dreams, and a heart full of love that would never fade. As she watched the stars twinkle above, Olivia knew that, though her journey had been marked by loss, it had also been filled with incredible love and adventure. And she would continue to carry that love forward, one day at a time, for herself, for Max, and for the memory of the man who had changed her life forever.